Leeds! What is happening? Welcome to Working Hours, a show about a place called Leeds, a time called now, and an activity called work. Working Hours wants to record 1,000 loiners over the course of this, the most important decade in the history of the human species, and ask them about what they do all day and hear how they feel about it. My mission is to try to map out what my city, Leeds, a city that has declared a climate emergency, is doing during humanity's biggest emergency. On Working Hours, we hear how loiners have, are, and will be coping with our multiple crises: the global pandemic, Brexit, and of course, the ongoing and accelerating collapsing of capitalism, the state, and the climate through this decade. To do this, I need people like you, dear listener. Most of all, I need people who are in Leeds or who are from Leeds to come on this show and be my guests. So please join me and help me with this mission whenever and however you can. Critically, I will need people like you, dear listener, as financial backers. Please consider supporting or donating to this project. You can do so with a £1 monthly donation via either Patreon or Ko-fi, or you could donate any one-off amount to Working Hours via either Ko-fi or through the LibrePay button on the About page of Western Studios' website. Thank you. My name is Simon, and this is all my fault. What did you want to be when you grew up?
I really wanted to be a teacher, I think, when I was growing up. So I think it's really easy to look at what's around you. So my mum's now a retired teacher, but I think that's what I wanted to be. And actually, I went and did a bit of experience in a school and realised that it wasn't for me in the end. So I kind of went down that route, but decided it wasn't for me, but did do some work in education, but I'm sure we'll come on to that. So, yeah.
So why wasn't it for you? Was it the kids that put you off straight away, or was it kind of like the additional homework that you had to do?
I think it was really about I think to be a teacher, you've really got to, I guess, really throw yourself into it. My mum worked evenings, weekends, whenever she could, and she was really, really passionate about it. And I went and did 10 weeks work experience in school, and I just felt like Ofsted came in that time and the teachers really struggled. And it wasn't the kids. I actually really like working with kids, and I do workshops with kids now. But with all that kind of, I guess that more of that critical side of things and what goes on in the background. But, it's a full-time calling being a teacher, and I think you really need to be absolutely in love with being a teacher to do it. And I've got a few friends who are teachers, and yeah, I still stand by that.
You're listening to Series 3, Episode 28, and to my guest, Sophie Greenwood. This is another Zoom interview recorded on the 11th of July, 2022. Hello, loves. Sophie Greenwood is a printmaker and the owner of a company called Ink and Bear that focuses on creative workshops, organising events and supporting other makers. Sophie has lived in Leeds since 2005 when she moved here to go to university, fell in love with the city and has been here ever since. Sophie runs creative workshops across Leeds. She strongly believes that anyone can benefit from getting creative and loves working with lots of different age groups to get them thinking creatively. Sophie is also the founder of Super Seconds Festival, a large online biannual event where 250 makers sell off their seconds, misprints and end-of-line stock at reduced prices. Sophie is mum to a 1-year-old and recently took the leap to go self-employed after maternity leave and spending the past 10 years working in operations for a small social enterprise. She's recently launched a brand new service for small businesses called the Creative Incubator, which utilises her love of planning to help other small businesses to structure and plan their creative ideas. You can find out more about Ink and Bear at www.inkandbear.co.uk, including information on the Creative Incubator. The quality varies on this recording, but your ear should adjust quickly. Now, please enjoy this episode of Working Hours with Sophie Greenwood.
So what is it that you're doing now then?
So I have actually recently gone fully self-employed. So I've been running a business called Ink and Bear for the last 5 years. And that's been doing printmaking and screen printing and selling t-shirts and prints and that kind of thing. But in the last year or so, I've really decided to take it seriously because I've been on maternity leave. And I liked my job before, but I realized I wanted to work for myself. So I now run creative workshops, so in printmaking and collage and journaling. And I also run online events for the makers. And I just launched a kind of small business sounding board for other creative businesses. Because my background is in operations and planning, which I'm sure we'll come on to. But yeah, that's what I'm doing now. So quite different to what I was doing before, which was a lot of spreadsheets and a lot of operations stuff for a small social enterprise.
So how did it come about, and how did you decide that you wanted to sort of set up on your own? And what gave you the confidence to do that? Was that working at the social enterprise and just sort of being close to that and seeing how it operated? And then you were like, I can do this, I can do something.
Yeah, absolutely. So the reason I set up my business in the first place 5 years ago is because I was doing printmaking for evening classes, and I just had piles and piles of prints, and I either needed to stop or I needed to sell them. So I decided to go down the selling route. And then I've just been doing that for a few years, and then just working. So my old job was head of operations for a social enterprise that gets businesses to go into schools. So works with big corporates around in workshops for kids and doing workshops for adults. And yeah, I did enjoy that job, but I went off on maternity leave and just thought, it's now or never. And I think when you're put in that situation, and I guess earning less than you would have been for a year, I was only on statutory maternity pay. So you get used to a certain level. And I thought, you know what, I'm just going to do it. I'm going to take the leap now. And having had the headspace, well, not really being on maternity leave, but having had the headspace towards the end of maternity leave. So I was off for 13 months to really think about it. I started to make the leap just 8 weeks before I was due back. So yeah, about 12 weeks ago.
Yeah. So were you setting up then while you were pregnant?
Yeah, so I was doing bits while I was pregnant because that was in the kind of height of lockdown. I was doing quite a lot of stuff. I'd had a bit of I guess to take it back in February 2019, I decided to go down to 1 day a week. Sorry, 1 day a week from 5 days a week. So I was working. I had a bit of a health scare the Christmas before and thought, right, I'm gonna need to take this more seriously. And just before lockdown happened, I'd already taken this decision to do my business 1 working day a week and work in the office 4 days a week. So I'd already made that decision. And then, so I was working on that kind of during lockdown, whilst I was pregnant, and then whilst I was on maternity leave. And then it's kind of really ramped up in the last few months. You know, when anyone who's had a kid will know the first few months is a bit of a whirlwind. But yeah, the last few months of maternity leave was focused on it. Yeah.
Okay, well, since we're on COVID, since we've touched on it already, let's go into the COVID question and sort of, I mean, I want you to kind of take us through your lockdown experience of like going into lockdown. Was it sort of, you were prepared? Because I mean, I suppose if you've already had a health scare, you might have been on higher alert and kind of like, I need to get secreted away earlier than everyone else locks down. And then like in terms of work, was that more work or less work happening at the time? And you know, was it work all the time, or was it, you know, not much work at all? So take us through your lockdown experience.
Yeah, absolutely. So it was a bit of a weird one because I'd already decided to have the extra day a week to work on my business. I felt like then being forced to be locked away, actually, it gave me more time to think about my business. So I know some people have had some really horrible experiences of COVID, but for me, kind of having that experience and then getting pregnant, and then having to lock myself away a bit more because you had to at that point. It was advised that you didn't go out a lot, kind of interact with people. It actually gave me more space to really think about growing my business. And so, yeah, that was that experience of it. And it actually gave me the idea that meant that I've actually been able to go self-employed. So I run something called Super Seconds Festival, which is an event for makers to sell their seconds and misprints and end of line stock. And there's I had 250 makers, just about to run the 5th one in October, but there's no way I would have come up with that idea unless I wasn't doing stalls. So before lockdown, I was doing stalls, selling prints, selling just prints and cards at that point. And lockdown, I was just printing because I had time, but then I had piles of stuff building up that was seconds. And I just thought, God, I bet other people have got this as well. I thought it would be me and like 10 others. And in the end, that first one, I just ran it for free just to see if there was an interest. And the 250 people who said, we're also locked away in our houses, struggling financially as independent small businesses. We really need that boost to be able to sell our stuff, our seconds, and get to a market who appreciates, because a lot of people offer up 75% off. So that's been really good. So I think my experience of lockdown was, obviously it's been difficult. It's been difficult for a lot of people. I really miss family, my friends, dad. But on the work side, personally, it was quite hard. But work side, it was good. It was a boost that I needed. It was also I was kind of involved with restructuring the social enterprise that I used to work for, and that was really hard, having to speak to people I'd worked with for 10 years and having to let them go in that scenario and interview them and make those decisions. I found that incredibly hard, kind of personally and professionally. And that, I guess, was one of the things as well that made me start thinking, actually, I would quite like to work for myself. So does that answer your question? There's quite a lot of stuff there.
Yeah, well, I mean, it is a big question because it was a long period of time. I mean, it went on forever, didn't it? How much was pregnancy kind of driving your decisions at that stage? I mean, in the middle of a pandemic, that all seems very I was just very rational with it. I mean, with the isolation as well, I mean, you were obviously using that time to focus on something constructive, but yeah, was it nice to have that thing to throw yourself into and kind of take away from any potential worry?
Yeah, definitely. Well, yeah, no, I was on the kind of negative side of things. I was scared. There was a lot of talk about, pregnant women shouldn't catch COVID. It's incredibly detrimental to the woman and the baby. It was a really scary time, and it meant lots of, walks with my husband just around the local area, but not really doing or seeing anybody else. So yeah, no, it was it was a difficult time. And I think I've always been someone who, having something to focus on has been helpful. So I just kind of threw myself into it. But I don't think, did any of us have a choice if you had to just kind of get on with it, didn't you? And throw yourself into things,
Yeah. Or, well, for some people that's throwing yourself onto, the internet, isn't it?
Yeah. And some people just have to get on with their jobs, going out every single day and being on the front line, which, just incredibly difficult. And I just think it was a really odd period for all of us.
Yeah.
It still is. I mean, it's still around, isn't it? It's just.
But I suppose, I mean, if you hadn't been pregnant, you would have potentially at the point where vaccines come along, it's kind of like, oh, well, it's fine now. But then being pregnant, you're kind of like, oh, well, what does that mean now?
Yeah, so pregnant women could only get, so the point I was going into hospital to give birth on C-section, I knew the day I was going in. It was only a week before, or 2 weeks before the pregnant women were allowed vaccines. And at that point, I needed to isolate for 10 days before my C-section anyway. So there would have been literally no point. So yeah, I didn't even have that option to kind of weigh up. But yeah, I think I was just pleased that I was just lucky that I wasn't someone who would have to go out, because there were people who did. Yeah, I'm just, I don't know, it's difficult, isn't it? I don't know what to say about that. It's hard. Those people had a really difficult time.
Yeah, but I mean, it was the discussions that I've had about it through this. I mean, even if you were just sat at home not doing anything, that's hard enough in its own ways. So yeah, it's a crazy time, but it's all crazy all the time now. So
yeah, definitely. I found my community in that sense. So, I know, through kind of Instagram and Facebook and stuff, I found my community of other creative makers in that time that were also looking for things to throw themselves into. So I think on a positive work angle, I was able to meet people that I maybe wouldn't have met otherwise and chat to them on the internet. And, the event I run, we do Zoom calls in the run up to make sure the makers are prepared for it. But actually that meant that once a week I was connecting with this incredible group of people who were all creative, all having their own struggles, but all wanted to come together to talk about how they can still make their businesses work. Because a lot of little businesses like mine, I put a thing out on Instagram saying about what questions people might have for anyone going self-employed. Because I know when I was looking to go for it, I really wanted to ask people questions. So I did a kind of, ask me a question thing. And one of the questions was, do you feel scared of starting your own business in the biggest economic crash in a long time? And the answer was yes, terrified that if I didn't do it now and I went back to my, almost full-time job, I knew that the momentum I built, I wouldn't be able to walk away from that. I don't think my other job, because I do enjoy my other job, so I would get kind of myself thrown into that. But yeah, it's quite interesting. I think there's a lot of businesses who have struggled in this period. A lot of them have shut down, unfortunately. to watch, like people who were involved in the first Super Seconds. It was called Super Seconds Saturday originally in September 2020. A few of them have shut down, and that's been quite hard to watch. So their businesses haven't survived the ride of the pandemic. So yeah, that's been quite hard to make this community of people and then see some of them drop off. So yeah.
Yeah. Well, I suppose there's a few things coming out of that, but I think what I'll do is go into the social media question, because obviously, I mean, was that the thing that drove most of your kind of initial growth setting up? You know, like, was your focus always going to be through social media to kind of build yourself and your brand? And yeah, so that's the first question. So I'll let you answer that first, and then we'll go into the sort of bigger question with it.
So yeah, I know some people have issues with Instagram and things like that. I really rate it as a tool for, as I said, like finding your community and finding your people that want to connect with you. I definitely kind of grew it through to that Super Seconds angle, because I was basically saying to people, come and find these makers who want to sell you things for 75% off. They're all handmade. It might just be that they have a thumbprint on the back, or a slightly cracked candle or something like that. They're not, people say it's barely noticeable. So I did drive a lot of that, kind of people finding me through that. But it's interesting because I'm now doing creative workshops in Leeds, so all over Leeds. And I'm finding that a lot of my audience are on social media, are national, international. So now I've got to put on my thinking cap and think, right, how do I reach people locally? Because it's all been well shouted about, a workshop. I'm doing screen printing at Seagulls. Someone in London doesn't care about that.
Yeah.
So I'm finding that a bit of a challenge now. So that's the kind of flip side of the social media. How do you find local people that through social media? They exist. It's just, tapping into that. So I almost feel like I'm a little bit starting okay with Instagram. But like I've got this audience, and then it's like, how do I find other people who might be interested in creative workshops and what's there? So yeah, it's two different angles. And I also do social media for a creche in Headingley. It's part of so one of the things I'm really passionate about is kind of, sounds really lame, but like diversifying income streams. So having lots of different things going on to make sure that if one thing fails, my business doesn't fail. So I do a bit of social media for a creche in Headingley. And whilst they've got quite a few followers, but they're all local. So when you advertise something on there, it's going out to, 1,500 local people. Whereas when I'm doing it on my Instagram, it's going out to people, but they're not all local. So who's actually seeing it? So yeah, it's kind of interesting, but I try and make it so that social media isn't just about selling as well. So today I've been doing a printmaker. I've been sharing that, just people, showing that kind of creative process side of things. That's not then just about selling, because I don't think people want to, I know I don't want to be sold to all the time. I don't mind, I love seeing people's products, but then like small independent works, but then I want to see behind the scenes, and I want to know a bit about them, and I want to see their face occasionally, I'll pop up and say hi so I know who I'm buying from. So I try and put those principles into my own social media, not just get buy things all the time, but and that makes it more fun for me as well. Like showing my process a bit more, which is what I'm passionate about, like creative process.
Did you have any issues with sort of being on camera or putting yourself out there in that way? Was it just sort of something that you'd naturally been doing anyway, and it was just like, yeah, I can do this for business?
I think that because I was doing it as part of my job, so I've been going into schools and delivering workshops with like training volunteers. I think I've always had to stand up in front of people, but I used to be really nervous about that. I figured like at least you've got complete editing rights in your own business. I did used to get a bit nervous when I used to do lives, because I do them now, but the part with the Super Seconds, I did my first live with someone, and that was quite nerve-wracking. But I think if you can edit it, you can record it 10 times if you want.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But I think I was a bit nervous when I first did it, but I've been doing it for a few years now, so you just have to get used to it. I'm sure you're the same with a podcast. I bet the first time you did it, you were like, oh, God, I don't like my sound, my own voice. But now you probably need to listen to it lots and lots.
Yeah. You get bothered about other things instead.
Yeah.
Like that's wrong, or that mistake, or this thing, or I shouldn't have done that. I'm going to do this different next time.
But at least you have editing rights. So that works for you too.
So in terms of the time that you spend on social media, do you think it gives you, enough value back in return? Does it like really reap rewards for you, or is it kind of like hit and miss? I don't know if it's doing anything. It's doing some things sometimes.
Hit and miss, I think.
Mm.
Rarely, if ever, come across a small business that says, and a creative business anyway, that says, oh yeah, social media, every post I put out, I get returns. But I mean, some of the posts are just for me. So like the one I did today, which was using a lino block to print some fabric just for fun. Like that, that was just for me. I wasn't really putting that out to get a return on it. But yeah, I think, but then sometimes they do really well, sometimes they don't. I think the Instagram gods are either trained to you or they're not. And I don't think there's many people who know how to favor them. So, yeah, but I enjoy it as well. And I try and not spend too much time just kind of mindlessly scrolling, but also sometimes I quite like doing that, just see what other people are up to. And I think a huge part of social media for me is like, as I said, like finding that community of people, being inspired by what other people are doing. I follow a lot of artists who then I think, oh, that's really cool. Or, oh, I love that they've done, they'd be doing something with flowers. Oh, I might buy a bunch of flowers and do that instead of my style. And I really find those, I don't know if you've seen them, but the kind of Instagram challenges where there's one called March Meet Maker, which is run by Joanne Hawker, which is brilliant. And it's a prompt each day in March. And the prompts are, an introduction to you, an introduction to your workspace.
All right. Yeah.
Right through to tools, your home, your desk, that kind of thing. So then what happens is you go on that hashtag and you can see everybody that's put up their workspace, which I'm particularly interested in because I'm fascinated by other people's creative processes, no matter what they make. I find it really interesting. So I use Instagram for that as well as an inspiration. And I don't just see it as a business tool. It's kind of, there's almost a very fine, dangerous line between doing work on it and doing it for like personal enjoyment, because then you just, on it a lot. So, and I try, sometimes I think, oh, well, I want it for business. And then I think back and I think, oh, no, you were looking at pictures of other people's work or whatever. But I don't think that matters either, because I think the more you engage with people, the more the platform favors you. So I just say enjoy it. Don't think too much about the business side of it. If you enjoy it, if you find it painful, then maybe another marketing tool's better. But I've enjoyed seeing people's pictures and sharing my own. So
yeah. Do you do it quite kind of instinctively and organically, or is it quite sort of, do you have fully planned out, like, I'm videoing today, I'm going to do X many posts today, I'm going to do this post then, like?
I've got 2 different accounts. So one is my @IncandBear. That's my main one. It's where I've been on Instagram since everybody used those really bad filters. I don't even know when, probably 10, 12 years ago. When it was, people were just putting up pictures of food, pets. Like I was doing that. But yeah, I think that on IncandBear, it's quite organic. So today, my little boy was napping. It means I do have him in 2 days in nursery, but he was napping. He did with me today, and he was napping, and I just thought, I've just bought these. I mean, they won't be able to see this, but I've just bought these blocks from Hand Printed, which is where I got all my stuff for lino printing. And it was just staring at me, and I thought, I've got to do something with this. So then I just filmed myself doing it. So it wasn't like I was thinking, today I'm going to do this and I'm going to film it. And then I just got really excited that I'd done something with it and I wanted to like share it. So that's a bit more organic. Whereas with Super Seconds Festival, that has its own Instagram, and that is fully planned and scheduled because I've got it launches. It's in October. I launch it at the beginning of August. So I've got like 2 months to get everybody to apply, decide who's going to be taking part, and then I need to get not 250 posts like this, but like carousel posts out with everybody on to make sure that every single maker is represented and opens anybody off, so it's really fair and everybody gets represented in stories and that kind of thing. So yeah, it's 2 completely different approaches. So my more creative one about workshops and just the creative process in general is very organic. And then Super Seconds Festival is like super organized. And I even try and do that thing with the grid where you can like one work grid, one trade one to make it look. But I think there's merit in both approaches. I prefer the organic one, but if you're running an event like that, I think you've got to really plan it, because you've got to make sure that everybody gets to say.
Yeah. And have that regularity as well. When you're being, inspired, you're not always inspired at the same time every day.
Yeah.
I mean, we've kind of touched on how you got into it. So maybe if we kind of want to have a bit of a discussion around, you said getting lots of income streams going. So how did you kind of approach that? Were you like, I'm going to make enough money off this, from doing it one day a week? Or did you already have that plan of like, that's not going to be enough, I need something else? Like, how did you build that up? Was it sort of slow, step by step, or was it just more throwing stuff at the wall and like, will that hit? Will that work? Like,
Yeah, there's a little bit of throwing stuff against the wall, but I've kind of got to a position where it wasn't like I had all the money figured out before I went into actually running it as a business. It was more like I was really passionate about it. I knew that I wanted to really make this work and work for myself. So I've been kind of earning enough to really just to survive. And then it's about kind of building from that. So I already had Super Seconds Festival and my products. And then in my old job, I was head of operations for a social enterprise, managing events and all the staffing around that. So it would be around what money came in and therefore what staffing we needed through the year. And with that, I've never really talked about that side of myself on my income bear, my creative side, because that has always been a bit of escapism from the full-time job that I was doing. So it did feel a bit odd to all of a sudden start saying to people, actually, I've got this operations and planning experience that you may not have seen before, but actually that's going really well. So I've launched something that I'm calling the Creative Incubator. And the idea is, as a creative business, you can come, actually, it's not just creative businesses, it's just small businesses in general. You can come and spend, it's a 2.5-hour session with me where I will be a critical friend, a confidential kind of pop-up colleague that you can bounce your ideas off. And then I take them through kind of an operations and planning process where we can review ideas against their objectives and come out the other end with a plan of around the kind of next, well, some people want 3, 6, 12, 24 months. Some people want 1 to 5 year plans. But that's something that I've only launched since I left my other job and thinking, actually, I really don't want that skill set that I have to die, because actually I've been doing that for nearly 12 years at that company, but 6 years working and leading operations for that company. I was thinking, like, how do I use that experience and bring that to life? But it was good, actually. I launched 5 spots at an introductory price last week, and they all went within like a day. So I was really pleased about that, because I didn't know how it was going to land. When I've been doing this, like, come and do workshops with me, be creative, like, here's my creative process. And then all of a sudden to go, boom, I also know about operations and planning. Like, I love a spreadsheet. Like, it kind of, do you know what I mean? It like didn't fit with it. So I was pleased to see them. I would say they're all artists who run their own businesses, who want sessions to somebody to be that kind of confidential, critical, but in a kind way, person who can bounce their ideas off. So that's another income stream around one recently that I ran to prove a bit if the concept worked. So I was doing creative journaling for parents. So I did bring my own baby along. Because when my son was very little, I didn't know where to go, where I could be creative, and there was something for me that was a class for me that I could take him along to. There's a lot of baby classes which are brilliant and serve a purpose, but not a lot for kind of parents who want to be creative just themselves. Anyway, I put it on. I thought it would be really popular. I scraped through getting 4 people to come, and actually they all really enjoyed it. And now I've got some pictures and testimonials and that kind of thing. But that was definitely one of those ideas that I just came up with the idea and went, right, I'm just going to try it. But I think sometimes in that scenario, it's about saying, you know what, even though I'm running that at a loss, that particular event ran at a loss because I had to pay for the venue and refreshments. Actually, it proves that concept. Does it work? I think it does. They enjoyed it. So I'm going to try and do that again. But then I really need to be sensible and think, if it then doesn't work next time, then I need to think, actually, that doesn't work as an idea. So there's a bit of that, kind of seeing what sticks and running things at just not making a lot of money, but really enjoying them and trying the idea.
Did you milk that one for content then, the baby one?
I did, yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you might find that if it does have legs, you know, if that picks up that bit of content, and then it's like, well, then that's done the advertising for you beforehand when you run it again, and it's like, oh, I'm doing that thing, and then loads of people come. So you never know.
So, like, I was really honest with it was all, I did it for parents, but it was all mums who came, which I tried to open it out, but there's a lot of mums on maternity leave who want to get creative. And I was really honest with the mums who came and said, actually, I've studied stuff with it. Do you mind if I put some pictures and then guys' testimonials and when sharing, they said they enjoyed it. So yeah, I think it's good to be honest with people in that scenario. And actually, often people will help you out. So, the mums who were involved then shared it on social media to say they'd enjoyed it. So I think there's a nice thing about being a small business, and you can be honest with people and say, actually, I don't want this to work, but maybe not working quite yet. Yeah. Well, there are other things, like I do introduction to screen printing and introduction to line editing. People know what that is. It's kind of an established idea. I can kind of show people. I've got a whole book now I've done lots of them. I've got whole books full of like samples that I can show people. But yeah, I'm just trying to think kind of creative about how I get out to people. So by doing like printing your own cards and like at fairs, and doing Seagulls Fair this weekend, which will pass by the time it's recording out. But it's I'm doing that, so that's just a way of kind of getting the word out there a bit. But back to what I was saying earlier about the social media side of things not being everything. You have to think beyond that. But I'm just not. I'm still like in infancy of thinking beyond that.
Yeah. So I want to get some discussion of your kind of. I mean, obviously, you've got quite a strong work ethic. You're obviously doing plenty of stuff and staying very active and are very committed to this project. So are you like work all the hours in the day, or are you like, I've planned my day. This is what I do. I get up, I do that, and it's very regimented, and you've got a good distinction between work and life, and you've got the whole work-life balance sorted out.
No. No. I think when I thought to myself, right, I actually had a bit of a word with myself this morning, because I'm really interested in what I'm doing. And what that means is that when someone approaches me about something, I'm often saying, yes, I'll do that. And I know that I need to take a step back and that it's my personal time a bit more. And it's interesting, it's like a creative business doing kind of art stuff, like trying to ring fence. Actually, like if I'm doing a piece of art, if I'm doing some painting or like, and then I'm recording that for content, is that work or is that enjoyment? Because I'm not doing it because I'm not selling it. It's not something I'm going to sell. Like I'm not responding to emails. I'm still doing something. So I'm finding that interesting at the moment, that idea between like, actually, when I'm resting, obviously I watch TV and I like to cook, I like to go out and see my friends in the pub, that kind of thing. But if I'm not very good at just sitting and doing nothing. So I think I probably need to have a bit more distinction, maybe take up something that's totally unrelated to my business to define that a bit more. But yeah, no, I'm definitely not like, I'll often get to the end of my working day and I'll, pick my son up from nursery, and then we'll get home and I'll put him to bed, and then I'll be like, I'm just going to pop on and do a coffee more, which can soon turn into bleary-eyed going to bed at 11, having worked. I don't know if anyone else gets this, but like then I can't sleep properly because I'm kind of buzzing. Like,
you're overstimulated. Yeah.
Yeah. So I definitely need, like, I used to love reading and I haven't done that for ages.
Yeah.
So I'm definitely trying to get more into that side of things rather than just my break is eating tea and watching Netflix. But I also think it's hard when you've got a little one to kind of then influence that time for yourself. But I do try to on an evening do a little bit of that. But no, I definitely haven't got the work-life balance thing sorted out. I need to work that out, I think.
Yeah, I think it's rare that people say that they have on that one. Yeah, so then workspace. Are you working from home? Are you working in the shed? Are you working in a co-working space? Are you working wherever you can? Like, how are you working?
I have to mix it up or else I get distracted by washing and burn or, that kind of thing cleaning the house. So I do have a space at home, which is, until 6 months ago, we lived in a 2-bedroom house and it was the other bedroom. So we were all I lived there for 10 years. So we were kind of, there was a squeeze in one room, then added my son in that room. And then the other room was my workspace. So we've just moved into a slightly bigger place that needs a lot of work doing, but it does have one nice dining room that I'd taken over because we're not. I don't there's 3 of us. I don't necessarily need the dining room and the living room. I mean, some people might, but that's just not. We've got a little table in the kitchen. So yeah, I work in there. So I do a lot of my kind of creative work in there, and it's got at the moment there's boxes around because I've been doing workshops. So when I come back from a workshop, I have a bit of a system that I've got. Journaling, screen printing, line opening. So they're kind of all in separate boxes. And there's one box that has something for each of the, one pencils and for all of them, for example. So I've got a system in my studio, but I do really like getting out as well to work. But my son's only started nursery yet, 4 weeks ago. So I'm really not, into a rhythm yet.
Yeah.
But I'm really excited. So on Wednesday, I don't have any meetings or any workshops. So I'm going to, I'm going to find some different coffee shops to work for. Hopefully don't kick me out because I'm only having 2 coffees. I went down at Pretzel Forge. I don't know if you know Butler's down at Pretzel Forge.
I haven't been down to Coastal Forge yet. Yeah.
There's a fab kind of independent cafe inside the building. It does really nice food, nice coffee. It's really affordable. And the team there are just absolutely lovely. I want to go down with my son, but also go down and work down there. They're just really, really nice team. They'll come over and say hi. Sometimes they do 8 till 3 there. It's quite a long day of changing from coffee. But yeah, I definitely have to mix it up. I've been eyeing up the library as well. They've got a is it the Business IT Centre? A space that I might go there this week.
Yeah, it does look interesting. And I forgot how big the library was as well. Because I was away for years and then I came back, and then for the last couple of years when I went into the library, I only ever went around the ground floor.
Yeah.
And then I went upstairs and I was like, oh, I forgot it had an upstairs, and it's 3 or 4 floors.
Yeah.
God, this is huge. I forgot.
Yeah, well, I'm going to go check it out because my friend shared it, and I was like, oh, hang on, no, it's brilliant. Yeah. I went there for free. So I'm always trying to find places. I also love Lex Bank, but just in general, I don't know if you've been to Left Bank, but big fan of Left Bank, and that's a really nice space to work. You've got kind of constant supply of great coffee, and then the big open. It's for anyone listening who didn't know, it's the big kind of converted church in Texas Hyde Park, maybe Burley.
Yeah, probably Burley.
Yeah,
Cardigan Road, isn't it?
Yeah, but it's a really, really nice place. So yeah, I'm just constantly trying to find places that are nice to work. But I've been there. I went to the Open Studios at Sunnybank Mills.
Yeah.
And the studios there are absolute dream studios. Other makers that are there created are just they blow my mind with their work. So I think one day I might venture out of the house. But I've got to get the money right. I've got to keep my own constantly. I say a new business. I've been running my business for 5 years, but running it now is serious. I've got to make this work.
Have you already broken even? Are you running at a loss? Are you in the profit already?
So I think it was a sign for me actually that I broke even this year. So it's taken me 5 years of buying stuff, but I've got quite some equipment. I've got an exploding unit and an 8 press. They're kind of 200, 300, 400 quid a pop. They'll kind of become things that you need to buy. And I've got over there, I've got loads of screens. It's taken quite a lot to get it set up. But no, this year I looked at my accounts and thought I'm probably about £100 in profit overall from setting up 5 years ago. So I thought, you know what, I'm starting at zero. That's got to be the thing. But I think that's the thing that I probably didn't anticipate when I started it as a side hustle, as people call it, 5 years ago, is that I didn't realise just how long it would take to get everything set up and then to bring them to make that all work.
Yeah.
But yeah, it has taken me 5 years running it alongside a full-time job to make it work. So yeah.
Yeah. So has it always felt good doing it, or did it only kind of start to feel good when you're kind of like, oh, yeah, it's now starting to feel like a success? Like, are you even at that point yet, or are you like, no, I need to hit all these other goalposts before I feel that it's actually successful?
I have always enjoyed it. So for the first few years, it was about printing and going to fairs to sell my work. And anyone who sold their work will tell you there's nothing quite like the buzz, especially for the first few years where people want to put your artwork on the walls, which is like, yeah, exactly. I'm like, yeah, the first store you do, like, what do you mean? Like, yeah, of course you can buy it, but you sure. But yeah, so that's me in lockdown. I started printing fabric, which is actually how I ended up doing my 6 seconds thing, because I'd printed so many fabric t-shirts. I've printed so many t-shirts long that I had this like massive pile of t-shirts. I was like, how do I do with these? They've all got like, some of them had a bit of ink just at the back on the tiny bit of spot, which you'd never notice, but I couldn't sell it full price. So I've always enjoyed using it as an excuse to experiment. But I think I was saying to the ladies who were doing the journaling course in there, I feel like doing things like the journaling course and scrapbooking, it almost brings together all the reasons that I've ever hoarded paper and I put in, I mentioned my mum earlier on being a primary school teacher. She's retired and she's got like 20 pairs of scissors that she's not farted with yet and that kind of thing. So I feel like everything that I've been doing till this point has kind of led to this. I did business management at university and I never really understood like why I'd done that, like, because I really didn't enjoy it. And I had a moment in the day where I thought, actually, like, I'm running my own business now, maybe, and I'm really interested in, as I said, like this creative incubator thing where I help other businesses thinking their business plans and diversifying their income streams. And I just thought, I am interested in business. I'm just interested in small business rather than like, I was at Leeds Business School and it's all about corporate businesses, international, strategic business, kind of massive multinational conglomerates. And I wasn't interested in that. And that's why I went into social enterprise thinking, I'm going to use this training and try and do something good with it. And actually it's taken me, I'm 35, it's taken me to this point to go, all these things have led to this point. So yeah, that was a long way of saying, yes, I have always enjoyed it. But when it felt like this, I guess what you're saying about success is it felt like a success when I'd done the second Super Seconds Festival. That was the financial I've been able to then. Yeah. Don't get me wrong, it's not going to pay all the bills and that kind of thing.
No, but yeah.
It wasn't like before I was getting like a few £100 at spare, which was never going to be enough to quit my job. So
it's kind of like when it moves from in your head to being like, oh, this is possible to, oh, this is viable.
Yeah, definitely. And I think I'm definitely at that point now where I'm going, this is viable if I meet, you mentioned goals, like this is viable if I carry on going.
Yeah, if I do X, Y, Z.
I wouldn't say right now, it's not like I'm starting to go, yeah, this is really viable. But it will be, but I've only been doing it. As I said, my son's I've been doing it while I'm maternity, but he's been with me full time until I'm into it. So, and small children, they sleep for a lot.
No, yes, they take up a lot of time.
Yeah, they do. So
and money.
Really, so really when I'm thinking about, what was that success look like? I think it was when in February 2021, when the first Super Second Saturday I did free. The second one I charged people, not enough because I was still testing the water. So I only charged people like, I think it was like £7 a head or something, like not enough. And everyone actually fed back, really kindly fed back afterwards and was like, that wasn't enough. And I was like, I know, but you've got to start somewhere. And sometimes it's a confidence thing, like as well. But yeah, I think that was when I really started thinking, this could be viable. And then when I quit my other job and then started thinking about what skills I'd use in that job, in this one, then I was thinking, I'm piecing this together in a way that feels really organic and I'm enjoying it. And I'm still doing some work for my old employer as a consultant because we've still got a really good relationship and still really enjoy the work because they're helping support young people across Leeds in kind of areas of deprivation with employability skills and kind of work experience placements and apprenticeship fairs and careers events and that kind of thing. So that work's still really important, but so I'm still doing that. But I've put like limits around that to say that I only want to do that for 2 to 4 days a month.
Yeah.
So that then I still have time to work on my own thing and that doesn't get like swallowed up by something that I care about, but just not as much of my own thing. If that makes sense.
Yeah, no, it does. Right, so I've got something that I'm going to mention to you here, and we'll stick a pin in it. But if we get time, we'll maybe come back to it. But as we've been talking, so I've been kind of thinking about that kind of the business versus creativity kind of dichotomy of like, they're opposed, and artists being like, oh no, I'm not good at the business side and I'm not interested in that. And then you coming from that business side and sort of like you've got the experience of that, and then you want to bring the art and the business together. Well, smash. I'm thinking like, as we move into a future where more people are kind of doing art and creative work, is it going to be people who have the business experience that become the successful artists because they have that business experience? And then I'm also thinking about, what the network of that is. I mean, are we going to end up with an economy where we're all just selling each other our homemade goods? But I don't want to go into this now because I want to crack on with the other questions. But if we get time, I might come back to it later.
Okay. Do you want to answer it really quickly?
If you've got a short, yeah, I mean, yeah,
Sure. Well, I can expand on it, but I think that I do think the business side of things is really important. And I do come across a lot of artists who say, I can't do the business side. I don't believe that. I think you just need the right tools. So this is not a sales pitch at all because I don't do any work on it. But I use QuickBooks and it's just really, really easy. So I think it's part of having the right tools. But also, like, I don't think you can kind of put, I don't think you can put a price on art like that. Like sometimes you can see something that you think is absolutely amazing, like a printmaker work. That person might not have any kind of, not any, they may not feel they have business acumen, but actually like their work's incredible and they'll do really well. So I do think that I'm seeing the benefit of having both sides, but like I'm actually scaling back on my products. So I'm not going to be offering products as much these days because there's people out there doing amazing. And I think my skills better. I love people, where I get my buzz from. So I think if your work is good and you are a good artist, then I think you will do well. But yeah, and also I really believe that people should be shopping small. Please quite interesting. So I think like let's buy things from each other instead of the big boys.
Yeah, and I think like one of the things you touch on there is kind of being able to identify where your strengths are, where your skills are. It's like, okay, I have this and this. So I have these two together in this area. So that makes me very strong in this particular area because I have this additional thing. Yeah. Okay, so I will crack on slightly. So we've done how you got into it. So I'll do the change question now. So if there were you can change any three things about your work, whatever you want to change. Like they can be, completely ridiculous or normal, and it doesn't have to be three. So if you could change any three things about your work today, what would you change?
Okay, so I've kind of already mentioned it, but really enjoying other people. As I said, it's like where I get my buzz. So I think I would want to be in like a joint studio space. I think if I could like change my way of working slightly. But I also really like to chat to people. So I feel like being locked away sometimes is good for me to get stuff done. But yeah, I get incredibly inspired by going into places like sunny backgrounds. I think that would be a way that I would change the way that I worked. I think I really want to ring fence some more creative time for me, so I can often get like a full day and I'm just doing emails and all of a sudden, like when I'm doing the big festival that I run, like that can be like a 6 weeks of just like a long slog of just email, website editing, that kind of thing, putting the password together. And I really want to ring fence some time. So I went down to London last week and I just did, I was going down for some client work with my old employer. And I thought, right, I'll stop over the night and just have a night to myself. And that was amazing. I went to the summer exhibition at the Royal Academy. Like I felt buzzing after that. Came back, wanted to print some fabric today because I'd seen something there that inspired me. So I think like I really need to put the brakes on sometimes myself and go, you have to build in that creative time as a creative business yourself. Because otherwise you're just going to get lost in like answering emails, which then like, does that lose a bit of the reason you did it in the first place? So I can already see myself getting a bit trapped in like being in that work mode. And I think actually I need to acknowledge that creative time is work as well. As a creative business and as someone delivering workshops, I need to be inspired, or else how am I supposed to teach other people to be creative?
Do you schedule your time quite ruthlessly as someone who's done kind of planning and stuff? Or are you just kind of, I would generally hope that I do these things between these hours?
Yeah, I'm pretty ruthless. I have like a plan that I want to, what I want to get achieved every day, like a list in which order I'm going to do it in.
So would you do that kind of end of the day, or have you got your week scheduled out of like this, that's
I've got so I'm looking at it at the moment. I've got like a week scheduled out, and then I've already started on next week. But things slip. Like, don't get me wrong, I'm not achieving those things.
Yeah.
That's why I put them in order. So like, this has to get done today. And then it's like, nice to get done. So yeah, I'm going to be running them online. Another thing, like, because I'm doing 7 workshops, I want to course for other creatives who want to run workshops. But I've like put that out into the world that I want to do that, and now I actually have to plan it. So I'm gonna like sit down and do that properly. So yeah, but no, I do plan it quite ruthlessly, but it's kind of my background.
Yeah.
Or what I advise other people to do. So
Is that the most fun bit, the planning?
I do kind of like it. Yeah, I do.
I mean, there's definitely something in there, that whole, people who love stationery thing.
Oh yeah.
Like having the labels and stuff. Like there's something in there that I can find at some point during this process, I think.
Oh yeah, look, this is my drawer. I don't say people won't be able to see, but I've got like a label maker stickers, I've got a stapler, like my drawer in front of me has everything I can need. Yeah. No, I'm one of those stationery lovers. I do.
Yeah.
You'll find us. We tend to
They're everywhere.
So
Yeah. Offices are perfect for them.
Yeah. I also think that a lot of creative businesses, like particularly people who maybe do quite a bit of work at their desk or like jewelry makers, that kind of thing. I think they have a lot of stations often watching.
Anywhere where you have to label all the drawers, 3-inch screws, 4-inch screws. Okay, so we will go, I'll save UBI for the end because it'll be a happier question. So we'll go into Brexit. So yeah, so now that we've left the EU, now that we have Brexited, has that changed your work at all? I mean, obviously difficult considering when you set up and like how things have been going, but I mean, has it changed anything noticeably for you work-wise?
I think because to this point, I've only been like selling prints and things. I mean, it's more affected me on a personal level. I was absolutely heartbroken when the decision was made. So, and I still am. Like, I'm still angry at that. But I think for me, on a business level, I was only really ever selling kind of prints and stuff. So I don't really post so much to Europe anymore. And the biggest impact for me has been on the 6 Seconds Festival that I run. When I very first ran, I got quite a few European makers, and even some makers from, I had a maker in lots in Tokyo, and when everything kind of went through, and it's any small businesses or something close to Europe, it's a bit of a nightmare in terms of whether things get through or not, whether they get sent back, whether just all of that. So I did have quite a few makers, probably 15 out of the 250 that were involved, which doesn't sound like a lot out of the 250, but it just added a really nice element to it. Like I had the Mindful Potter, who was based in Greece. I've got Annie's Fingers, who are based in Spain. She's stuck with me, which is great. She's fantastic young, but I think there are some real decisions for those makers as to whether they do post to the UK. So actually, is there any point in doing an event where there's many UK buyers involved? And a lot of the makers fed back to me that they only had buyers from the UK, which meant that it was blocking off the whole European and even US market for them. That when I ran that first one in September 2020, before everything, I know because it was in motion, but before everything kind of like absolutely nailed on the decisions around posting to the people, that meant that those makers and buyers just couldn't engage again. So yeah, that's kind of how it's affected it, but that's more affected the makers who are involved in the thing that I'm planning. But I feel that through them because we have like a Facebook group where we're talking about things in the 2 months in the run up. We do, as I said earlier, we do like Zoom calls to support each other to get ready for that event. And there's been quite a lot of talk about the impact of Brexit.
Mm.
from a small independent business selling products point of view.
Mm.
Yeah, it's interesting with like the Creative Incubator thing that I'm doing. I've got one in a couple of weeks' time with a maker in Norway. So, and that's on Zoom. So kind of doesn't affect that side of things. It's really,
Mm.
yeah.
I mean, it's a weird one because it kind of has fallen off. It seems to have fallen off the business kind of media agenda, if that makes sense. So it's like, it's still kind of discussed on the news or in news as like, oh, Brexit's still a thing that things are ongoing with. But, you know, there were occasional kind of, what should business do about Brexit? And what does Brexit mean for business and stuff?
Yeah.
You don't see any of that now. Like, well, I don't see any of that sort of coming across my radar. But I just think that's kind of strange because now should be the time of like, okay, so Brexit's affected us in this way. So here's our pivot or whatever, or here's what we're going to do, or here's how we're going to make up that lost revenue. And I would expect to see more of that kind of media and discourse. And I'm surprised that it's not there.
Yeah, no, you're right. Yeah, absolutely. It's not come across my radar either. I think there's, you know, the community I'm part of is, we're all, you know, a lot of us are one man, one woman bands. So in terms of, you know, coordinating an effort to respond to it, it's hard. I'm part of a community called Indie Roller, which is a really good community. And the lady who runs that, Leona, does kind of try and get people together to talk about things like Brexit and you know, what we're going to do about it. But even, you know, and that's helpful. Definitely as a maker in that community, that's helpful. But yeah, it's hard to know what to do. But especially with me, like on a personal level, moving away from kind of products in that same way, my consideration is more around how does it affect the makers, therefore, you know, the events I run, how does it affect them?
Yeah. And I suppose because it's kind of, I mean, this is pure speculation, but like, you know, because it's kind of been toxified, for want of a better expression, you know, it's like people are loath to discuss it because there's the potential for it to kick off insurrections. So it's kind of like, yeah, well, we'll just ignore that and do something else. What was the other thing I was going to say to you on that? Like supply wise, did you have any issues with supplies or prices or?
I haven't actually, but bearing in mind that I was doing it kind of alongside a full-time job, so really the output that I had was, I was literally doing like, you know, I don't know, 4 or 5 stalls a year, like, and selling online. It wasn't huge before. So in a way, it's hard to know what's been disrupting things. Is it COVID? Is it Brexit? And you know, even the kind of, I guess the start of my business getting serious was right in the middle of all of that. The pandemic kind of gave me enough time to put time, and the idea for the festival that I run, like, that came from lockdown. So it's kind of been hard to know which is which and what's been affected. And yeah, but I haven't noticed anything huge. But these days, because I'm doing workshops, it's not about having huge amounts of things. It's like I've got, you know, paper and paints, equipment and stuff. But once I've bought the equipment, that then is then there. It's in terms of the price of paper, though, it's you've got to pay it. Like it's, but without going back to my figures, it's not something that I'm going, oh, damn it, the price of paper and cards really increased. But like, I mean, it probably has.
You're not at that point of like petrol process for paper yet. Right? No, stop this madness with paper.
Yeah, exactly. Now don't you rise the price of things? No, I'm not there yet. So I'm kind of, you know, and I use some really good suppliers that I tend to buy in bulk when I buy from them. Yeah. So no, I'm noticed. It's not something they probably have both if I went through the figures and went through my spreadsheets and my QuickBooks and that kind of thing. But yeah, it's not something that I'm angry about.
Yeah. Maybe if you did that, you might be like, how much?
Exactly. You know, almost what I can do. Get myself upset. It would have taken me 2 hours to get myself upset. I'll just assume it's fine.
Okay, so you know, great segue here from, you know, expensive paper into climate change. So yeah, a bit hot tonight. I'm sitting here sweating in this building. What can you do with your work or in your work with regards to climate change and adapting to it, mitigating it, or I guess even promoting awareness around it? Like, can you do anything? Is that part of your consideration within the business, or is that something that it's like, I can't worry about that. I've got to worry about, making money.
I think we all have to worry about it. I think it's
Mm.
hard to, I think everybody needs to worry about it. We could come at it from different angles. Obviously, as a small business, I'm not, I try and do things in my own for a small way. So with all my products, I only print onto a direct cut on t-shirts. Like I've just thought to myself, but with like my inks and stuff, they're all water-based inks. I don't use any kind of nasty inks for liner printing, which you can get some then local legal things. But like with I do take it into consideration because, for example, someone's asked me if I can do a t-shirt printing workshop. And this is only a small thing, but I think it kind of illustrates it. Someone's asked me if I can do a t-shirt printing workshop. Now, you can get t-shirts that are really low quality for like £1 for a blank t-shirt. Mine are more like £7-8 just for the blank, never mind then having to put in the artwork on the top and then screen printing it and then, doing all the things you need to do and coming up with the artwork. So, but I print on the t-shirt and I've been doing it for years. So I only rarely get seconds. And if I do get seconds, they go into a super second scale. So I'm not wasting anything. But when you're teaching screen printing for the first time, it does get messy. People need to practice. But I can't bring myself to, I'm refused to buy the pound t-shirts for people to practice on because they're just going to go in the bin or they're just going to shrink and then people aren't going to wear them and they're just contributing to fast fashion. So I'm thinking the only way that I can do that workshop is by charging the amount of t-shirts. And actually, we only get to print maybe 2 t-shirts each, but I still buy the ones that I buy, which are the organic ones.
Yeah.
So that's kind of a very small illustration, like how I consider it just in my everyday decisions about what workshops I'm running. Not just about, of course I'll do that because I can get some money and I'll buy some cheap t-shirts out in the world. Nobody needs more cheap t-shirts in the world. Like, we've got enough for it. And then I think really the whole point of Super Seconds is it's to help makers it's to give people discounted goods and it's to help makers to make a bit of money, but it's to stop those things going into the bin. Like a lot of those makers would have just chucked that candle that was cracked or whatever, like into the bin. So it's to, there's definitely a kind of angle there around lowering waste and not just 250 makers just getting rid of their stuff. Particularly in lockdown when you didn't have stalls, people often sell them on like a cheapy corner on their stall, like get these goods discounted for. So there's that angle as well. But I think it does, as someone who's environmentally conscious myself, the money, but also for the environment side of things. For example, like we don't have 2 cars between us, so that's a pain when I have to get to a workshop. I often have to go on public transport, with all that stuff attached to a big thing that I rig up with bungee ropes to travel with it, But that's, we don't have that. So someone who's kind of personally conscious, I do try and bring those decisions into my business as well, but whilst being conscious that I'm this tiny one-woman band.
I mean, just
the wrong question.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going back. I'm thinking back here to like when I was a kid and getting on the bus with my mum, and she'd have both of us, and she'd have the pram, and fold the pram up and carry you both onto the bus and stuff. And you saying there about sort of traveling with public transport. I mean, from a work perspective, as like a new mum and an entrepreneur, like, and someone who's trying to be, I suppose, environmentally conscious, like what I'm trying to get at here is like, what would you be your kind of perfect transport solution in that kind of scenario? Would it be like, just a nice big cargo bike or like a door-to-door bus service or an electric car? Like what would, from your point of view, what
I've never really thought about it because I'm so used to using, like I've never had, I've let drive 10 years ago, but I've never had my own car. Like, you just share a car and most people works out in the stick. So it's not something I would really consider that much. Like, I just get on with it. Like, I always take ever since my son was like a few weeks old, like, I just shoved him in the sling or in caravan that's got on the bus. So, I don't really know. I mean, the idea, because I live in Worcester, I do a lot of workshops in Worcester, and I go there with my things. So like, Horsewood Brewery, Choose for Cafe Yoga, like these are all places that I use regularly for workshops. So there is something about staying local. Horsewood's got good transport links. A lot of people come on the train to the 2 train stations here. But yeah, I use public transport regularly. So yeah, it's not, I wouldn't necessarily say it is about magically off the card for me. Often what I try and do is, have workshops, like think about where the workshops are positioned before I book it to see how we do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's your planning coming in again, isn't it? Of like, logistics.
Yeah, I've got to think about how I get there. So, and I'm not saying, don't get me wrong, like in that car, I do use the car like a bit at a time and it's on the drive. Like I'm using the car if it's there. I'm not saying that I'm going to try to drag all my stuff because sometimes I can't. Like I've got the screen printing, I've got these massive plastic tables that you have to screw winch clamps into, which are these big metal clamps that you literally screw into the table. And nobody wants to do that on the tables. But I just take my tables with me. And that 100% requires a car. So, but yeah, I mean, if money was an object, I think electric car would be nice. But it is an object, so public transport is good for that.
Yeah, because a lot of people have kind of mentioned sort of how nice it would be to have like an electric van or electric vehicle or something that they had access to, that they could kind of use at I suppose at a cheap enough rate, or someone that was, a great green taxi service, but they were kind of couriers. If you could price it at the right rate and everybody knew them, it'd be like, they would be so busy.
Oh God, yeah. Are you getting all your guests to like sign up for this? Yeah. No, obviously something like that. Yeah. Or even a car that you could like hire just, for the day. Like, I suppose that would probably be my favorite thing. Yeah, like an electric car that I didn't actually have to hold.
Yeah.
I'm someone who always got on the bus, always got on the bus into work every day. It's never bothered. So a car that I could use very, very infrequently just to do right. Setting it up.
I've got enough with this. I'm struggling with this, But maybe if I start making money off this and I've got some free time, I'll invest in something. So if there was a universal basic income, you were being paid sort of enough to live each month or have your basic needs met each month, would you still be working? If you'd still be working, would you be doing what you're doing now, or would you be doing something else? And if you'd still be doing what you're doing now, how do you think it would change it? Would you would your focus shift? Would you be doing less hours? Would you spread it out more or arrange it in a different way? So yeah, how would a UBI change things for you?
So I would definitely still be doing what I'm doing. So I've only just changed, really my whole life to be able to do this. And I've been dreaming of doing it for years. So yeah, I think that would, I'd definitely still be doing this. And in terms of changing the way that I do things, I think that there is something about having to earn money that gives you a laser focus that maybe wasn't there before. So like when I had my full-time job and then this was like not something that needed to give me the money, it did change it when I had to go full-time. When I went to full-time, it did change it when I had to earn the money. But equally, everything I'm doing because I want to do it, because I'm passionate about it. So I don't know if it would change it. And I definitely, part of your question, I definitely still work because, as we said earlier, I'm a little bit workaholic. I need to change that. I need to build in more rest time at the risk of, I don't want to burn out in a few months, a few years' time because I've just been racing at it so hard. So yeah, I think, it wouldn't necessarily, I think it would, I'd be naive to say that it wouldn't change the way that I work.
Is it work or is it play? What you're doing? Like, what are the work bits? Because you're working in a creative area and obviously you're kind of passionate about this and what you are doing. And you put a lot of time into it, a lot of hours into it, a lot of yourself into it. Is it toil and labor, or is it like having fun? I mean, like, is it the fact that you got to earn the money because you got to have money coming in that makes it the labor, or like, how does it feel? Like, what do you think is the work and what's the play? Is it, or are they both together?
I think they're both together, and that kind of rounds off the kind of Instagram thing I was talking about earlier on, like that idea of like, I'm posting on it to promote my business, but I'm also enjoying it. So I think it's the same, like, being able to say this is definitely work. I mean, admittedly, when it's 3 days before the two big events, I run it twice a year, the big event I run. When it's 3 days before and I've got, 20 makers asking me to change the catalogue because they've sent me the wrong link or they want a new photo or whatever, that feels like work. When I'm there at 10 o'clock at night, well, I really check a break to sleep, but I've got to do this. The event is in 3 days' time. Yeah. So I think there definitely are times that it does feel like work, but I think on the whole, like I'm enjoying myself, but I'm also aware that I'm new to it. Like, almost ask me again in 3 years' time. There'll be a lot of people who, there might be people listening to this and did what I did 5 years ago, and they're thinking, honeymoon period, which I'm aware it is. At the moment, I am on a work honeymoon. I'm really enjoying it and enjoying coming up with new ideas, enjoying putting them out into the world and getting feedback. Even if that feedback is sometimes people that there's not as many people sign up as I want, I'm still enjoying it. And I did a workshop yesterday up in Otley at Puffin Pottery, and it was really good fun. I had like 11 other old ladies, just happened to be. I had still 11 ladies who created all different designs, and I was just absolutely inspired by what they made. I was going around seeing everything that they made, and that doesn't feel like work when I'm in the workshop where other people are learning something. My absolute favourite thing is when people say, I'm not creative, I can't do it, I've been dragged along to this, which I get at least once a workshop, but I kind of see that I'm getting challenged. Like, they always come away with something that they're proud of. So, that doesn't feel like work. I'm helping people to get creative, and I love that. So, but yeah, as I said, I'm in the honeymoon period, so talk to me in 3 years and we'll see. I'll be like, no, not more workshops. I never want to do one again. So, yeah, I'm very conscious of that as well.
Cool. Right. So I think that was a lovely ending to that, but we've still got plenty of time left. So you've not got to dash off anywhere yet, have you?
No, right.
Okay. Right. So do you want to go through the socials, just hand out, where can people find you and follow you and buy all your things?
So my website is you can find all the workshops that I'm going to be doing. As we talked about, quite the progress. I've got most of my workshops between now and Christmas on there for who fancy getting Christmassy. I know it's hard to think about on literally the hottest day of the year, but yeah, that's my website. I've talked a lot about the festival that I run. That's an online festival, although watch this space Leeds, because I am thinking of running one in person in Leeds as well, where you've been able to get early access. I'm thinking like it's going to feel like a bit of a car boot, but with for people set up with their second and misprints and end of line stuff at this kind of prices. So you've got to get in there fastest person first. So I'm thinking of running one of those in Leeds, but that is at Super Seconds Festival, but in the weekend. And the next one is on the 1st and 2nd of October. And 2022, I'm aware that will age this. But I do tend to run it in March and October each year, so be looking out for that. And I'm over on Instagram at Bear, and also at Super Seconds Festival. And we won't get too much into Facebook because they deleted my whole presence, but then didn't tell me why. And then so I have 2 Facebook accounts. That's your area. One of them is at Incubator, which is no longer active because I can't get access to it. And one of them is at Incubator 1, which is where I do actually hang out and share things. So yeah, that's a bit complicated, but we shan't get into Facebook and why it's done that because I don't know. It's just really frustrating.
The bastards.
Yeah, exactly. But no, I do post things on Facebook as well. And yeah, I'm not on Twitter. So they're kind of the main place to stay on my Instagram and Facebook. Quite a visual thing that I do. So I tend to stick to Instagram, share a lot of processes and behind the scenes and that kind of.
Are you going to go LinkedIn? Because
so in my previous /current role, because I'm still doing some consultancy work for my company. So yeah, I'm on LinkedIn as Sophie Greenwood. So yeah, by all means, connect with me on there because I'm definitely going to be looking into how I can use that more. But
yeah, I think more and more creative type businesses are starting to move on to there because they've realized that it's like, it's becoming more of a social media site. And
yeah, and like I'm part of a network called She Can Shine, which if there's any female entrepreneurs in Leeds listening, it's run by Shine and I think that West London, if I've got that wrong, not sure. And that's a network that I only access through LinkedIn. So there are some things that I go through LinkedIn for. That's a thing that you can sign up for free to get some business support. And you go through a program with them around financial planning, social media and marketing and things. So, but they're only on LinkedIn, so I have to use it for things like that.
Thank you again to Sophie for being my guest. Thanks again to all my guests, and thanks to you, Leeds, for being my subject. And of course, most of all, thanks to you, my dear listener. Come back on Monday to hear me talk to Peter Spafford from Chapel FM. You can follow this show on Twitter at Working Hours 3 and on Instagram at Working Hours Pod Leeds. Use the hashtag Working Hours Pod Leeds to stay up to date on when new episodes are being released, to DM me with your questions, or most importantly, to get in touch if you'd like to be my guest on this show. Please do chuck in anything you can to help the show grow. Go to kofi.com/working hours and join me there for £1 a month, or you can make a one-off donation of whatever amount. You can also go to patreon.com/working hours pod to support Working Hours, again from as little as £1 a month. Why not be super awesome and join both? Do something new and something different. Remember to like, share, follow and subscribe to Working Hours. That's me. Cheers ears. Take care out there and be kind to each other, Leeds. Working Hours is produced, recorded, edited and published by Simon Treen for Western Studios Leeds Limited. The music was The Bees from Chopin's Etudes, which is in the public domain and was taken from musopen.org. Please like Western Studios Leeds on Facebook at facebook.com/Western_Studios_Leeds and on LinkedIn, linkedin.com/company/Western-Studios. Leeds, are you considering taking the plunge into podcasts or audio content? Then think Western Studios for support, advice and guidance on getting it made. At Western Studios, you work with a real-life learner who is actually in Leeds. Not a piece of software, not a course of articles or a series of live chats and video courses, but me, a person in physical place-based reality. If you want to work with me to make your podcast or any digital audio content in Leeds, whether it's for your own cause, your publicity campaigns, to promote your products, increase your sales, or just to create your own passion projects, then get in touch with me, Western Studios, now. Don't wade through vapid articles and videos and podcasts about how to make podcasts by disembodied virtual people on the web. Get on with making your podcast now, and then when it gets hard and expensive and it all goes wrong, which it will, then call Western Studios to make your podcast with you or even for you. Western Studios will take on your podcast's boring, time-consuming and painful admin, recording, editing, transcription, whatever. Tell me about your podcasting pain points and I can make it all better for you. I feel your pain. For a charge, I will share it. Remember, podcast work is work. Leeds businesses, Leeds campaigns, Leeds brands. Got an inkling that you'd like a podcast but don't know where to start? Contact Western Studios at makemypodcast@western-studios.com and we'll start making your podcast straight away. The first hour of arranged consultation and pre-production time is free. £25 an hour after that for editing, recording, production. I can also arrange hefty discounts for the right project. So tell me your idea and your budget and I'll tell you what I can do for you. What do you have to lose? Time. That's what. Time is running out. The best time to make a podcast was 10 years ago. The second best time is right now. Writers in Yorkshire, what are you doing with your lives? Hopefully you're writing. Well, I know there are listeners out there who want to hear great original writing performed as audio content that is about and for and has been made in Leeds. How do I know this? Because I'm one of them loiners what wants it. Help me make your old screenplays, unpublished novels, unperformed plays, stories, poems, and performances, whatever you got, baby, and make it as podcast content. Is your work arty, salacious, pulpy, strange? Good. Is it unfinished? Good. I can help you with that too. I can work with you to find actors, musicians, and voiceover artists and quickly realize your projects. I get practice making the shows and you get a finished, performed and published version of your writing. Save yourself the hassle and the headache of making your podcasts on your own by working with me instead.